First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsor for today's forum. Water Environment Services is our sponsor. Thank you very much. They've actually been a partner sponsor with the Oregon City Business Alliance for several years now, and we're thankful. Greg Geis, the director for Water Environment Services, will be coming up soon to just share a few words, and we have Shelly in charge of external affairs, who's going to be our moderator. But more importantly, she's on our board for the Oregon City Business Alliance, and we truly appreciate all of her efforts. She did a lot of organizing, a lot of citizen outreach in putting this event together, and I think the results show in that we've got a really good turnout. We have well over 100 people here, either in person attendance or watching it on Zoom. So I'd like for each of you to give yourself a hand for coming today. I'd also like to thank the Abernathy crew for putting together another amazing buffet lunch. They seem to top themselves every time we come here, and really I've had so many compliments about how delicious the food is. So even if you don't like the program, you get a great lunch. So how can you beat that? I know, we do have excellent programs. In fact, we do have cards on the table. The blue cards will be if you have any questions for any of our panelists, and Sherry Imes over there in the corner, or one of our other Oregon City Business Alliance board members will go around the room and pick up those cards. We're going to save the questions till the end of all the panel presentations, and then we'll bring them all back up and go ahead and answer. If you could print the questions, that's very much appreciated, because I can't always read everybody's penmanship, including my own, so that would be very much appreciated. So I'd like to, and the white cards are just comments that you have about today's presentation, and you can also use it to give recommendations to us for what topics you'd like to see next year. We'll be having our Business Alliance annual retreat on December 12th, and we'll be discussing what you want to hear, because that's why we're here. It's not to serve us, it's to serve you. And the more feedback and input we can get from each and every one of you as to what's relevant and what's important in your daily lives, that helps us formulate our subjects for the following year. Okay, I'd like to acknowledge some of our elected officials that we have here today. State Senator Mark Meek, where'd you go? There you are. Be sure and compliment him on his choice of fashion. I said it takes a very bold man to wear that color. Bold and confident. And then we have, I'm not sure if any of the county commissioners have arrived yet. I haven't seen Martha. But they usually have another meeting on Tuesdays, and then they come a little later. So we can acknowledge them at the end. Then we have some city commissioners, Mike Mitchell, Adam Morrow. They're city commissioners with Oregon City. And we have some West Linn commissioners, Mary Baumgardner. She's the council president over in West Linn. Carol Brick. And Carol, you just got appointed to fill a vacancy, didn't you? Yes. Well, welcome. Welcome to the Oregon City Business Alliance. We also are very fortunate to have a large group from the Clackamas River Water District today. These ladies all sitting here in the front. Oh, okay. Well, let's just go through them all. Tessa? There you go. And Sherry French? There we go. And we have April Dobson from the North Clackamas School District. Is she here yet? She couldn't come? Are you here in her place? Oh, I wanted to acknowledge you. You won't let me acknowledge you? Okay. I think that's all our electeds unless I missed somebody. Oh, I'm sorry. Anessa Hartman. Thanks, State Representative. I know you're one of our speakers. I know. My apologies, my apologies. Okay. Well, I am truly excited about today's topic. A lot of things take place with WES that we never know about, we never see about. We just assume when you turn on the faucet, the water's going to come out. When you turn on the hose, you're going to have clean water. When you do other things in the bathroom, it's all going to go where it's supposed to go. Sorry, didn't want to go into a lot of detail while we're eating. But they're an agency that provides so many needed services in a community that sometimes is never thanked. And we at the OCBA truly appreciate everything that Water Environment Services does in our community. If you drive I-205 and you know where the Home Depot is, there are the large buildings over on the left side as you're going north next to the cove, the Clackamas Cove. I've had the opportunity to take a tour of their facilities. It's amazing what they can transform what they receive into. That becomes a valuable product for agriculture as fertilizers and other byproducts. But with that being said, I'd like to introduce Ms. Shelly. Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. Greg, I want you to come up and say a few words about the role of WES in our community.
Thank you, Kent. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of water people out in the community. I want to thank OCBA. This is the 5th year that we're able to do some kind of water-related event, and today we're going to be talking about One Water. And I'm sure lots of people are going to talk about what One Water means to them. But when you think about, I thought actually Dan Fowler said it well last month when he previewed this event, when he reminded people of the water cycle that we all learn in middle school or so. And the idea that the water that we have today is all the water that we will ever have. It's a finite resource, and we need to take care of it. And so when I think about One Water, you know, there's surface water, there's storm water, there's wastewater in our case. And when I think about wastewater, all water has value. And that's what One Water means to me. The wastewater that comes into our treatment plant has value. We clean it and we put it back out to the river, so the river benefits from it. We make a soil amendment called biosolids that goes out onto agricultural fields that helps hold moisture and gives nutrients to the field. We make electricity that is valuable. The other thing, the next kind of thing that we're thinking about is reuse. And how can we take the water that we treat and use it for other purposes? Like I said, keep it in the stream. Maybe use it for things like flushing toilets and irrigation. So we don't have to use drinking water for those purposes. And that leaves water in the stream, in the Clackamas River, for all the uses that we enjoy it for there. So to me, that whole cycle, that's One Water. And working together across agencies and across the region is how we're going to really make a difference. So anyway, that's my spiel on One Water. I do want to get in a quick plug. I'm a Rotary Club of Oregon City member, proud member. Marcia Wimmer, Marcia, can you stand up? Had a great idea of creating a satellite club of the Rotary, Oregon City Rotary Club that's focused on water. And so that's what we're trying to do, get a group of professionals in the region attached to Rotary that provides kind of the structure and the framework for the conversations, and get a bunch of energized people in the room doing great things for water in Clackamas County and beyond. So if you're interested in getting more information about that, Marcia will be in the back of the room with a sign-up sheet, so please see her. Again, thank you, OCBA, and looking forward to this. Thanks. Shelly.
Well, good morning. Can you hear me? All right. Well, greetings, and again, welcome to our One Water Summit. As said, I serve on the Oregon City Business Alliance, and it is such a huge honor to be moderating our 5th Advancing Water Resiliency Forum. If there's one thing we've learned over the past handful of years, it's that there's no such thing as new water, and we can all agree water is an amazingly precious natural resource. Today's summit was intentionally designed to share the story of One Water from a variety of lenses. Our hope is that those in attendance will find creative and new ways to work together to solve today's most pressing water-related issues. And as you will hear, safeguarding a clean water future where all people benefit and rivers thrives requires collaboration, a bit of ingenuity, and a lot of hard work. Because today is about learning and engaging, I'd like to open with a short water quiz. Are you ready? Okay. Yes, this is a test. No grades, though. No grades. How well do you know water? Cheryl, you're going to be a ringer. I just know it. Everybody's so lucky to have you at that table because we can share notes. Okay, so we'll get into it. So how to play. Answer the question. If you know the answer, just write it down. If you don't know, introduce yourself to the person next to you and they can help you, but absolutely don't use your phone. That's a no-no. Okay, so there's going to be 20 seconds. Gail, you're going to help me. As soon as we hit the 20 seconds, just flip the red card. Then I'm going to have to close it, and then I'm going to give everybody the answer. So keep record. And here you go. Question 1. How long can a person live without water? Ready, Gail? Yes. All right, I see a lot of conversation going on. Okay. All right, the answer, 3 days to 1 week. Woo! Oh, some people are cheering themselves. All right, we got some people in the room who know. All right, here we go. Number 2, how much of the earth is covered by water? All water, just water. We going, Gail? All right. How we doing? I know they're all calling on you, Gail, as a ringer there at the table. All right, and the answer is 71%. Wow, look at, we got some applause coming from the women of water over here. All right, okay. All right, next one. How much of the Earth's water is fresh water? Such an important part of our conversation today. How much is fresh water? And those of you at home, I hope you're playing along as well. Okay, you got it? All right, okay. And 3%. Okay, next question. How much of the Earth's fresh water is actually available to us to use? Availability of that 3%. Doug, you know this one. I know you do. I know you do. Okay. I don't hear as much. Is cheering this time. Is this one a little bit harder? Okay, 1%. It's getting smaller, isn't it? Okay, now of that 1%, how much of the Earth's fresh water is used for agriculture? How much is used? Okay, everybody's getting a little quieter now. I see them still going. Manny, you're taking good notes there, I see. You're keeping score, keeping record for everybody. Okay, I see my friends from WSC. They're ringers over here at this table. All right, let's see if they did it. 70%. Wow. Okay, we can do the math, Doug. Not a lot left over there. All right, so what percentage of the world's population doesn't have access to clean water? Yeah. Something that we here in Clackamas, we are so fortunate, aren't we? Carol, oh my gosh, we know from the world of water how fortunate we are as we're drinking this wonderful Clackamas River water. Yay. All right. Yes. Nearly 1 billion people. Pretty sobering thought, isn't it? Okay, what date did the Clean Water Act go into effect? And if you can get the month and date, Ron has a prize for you. Okay, month and date. We just had a very big milestone anniversary. Big milestone. 50 years plus 1. Okay, October 18th, 1972. And why was this so important? Last question. Ooh. What river caught fire in 1969 due to industrial pollution, spurring public outcry over dirty rivers, and led to that passage? Bonus points if you can also name the state. Ron has a prize for you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anybody? So overall, show of hands, how did you do? How'd your table do as a group? Table's great. Okay. Yes, Anessa. I love the honesty. Okay. But yes. Oh. That was the answer. It stated it. That's okay. We're all right, Gail. The answer in that looked the same. So, did you learn something new, right? And I hope that kind of helps sort of reinforce the importance of today's conversation in this, I know, a very fast mini summit, but there's something to learn. Okay. So, I am going to ask the panel now to come and join me here in the front. Okay, and I'll just say a few words as they're gathering. So before I provide the panel a chance to introduce themselves, I'd like to extend well wishes to Counselor George, who was called away by a family emergency. She sends her regrets for not being able to join us today, but looks forward to the opportunity to engage in future water conversations as the opportunity arises. For those who do not know Kathleen George, she serves on the Grand Ronde Tribal Council and has spent her career helping tribal governments accomplish their goals and build their future. And besides serving on numerous boards, she was also awarded the Columbia River Hero Award by the Columbia River Toxics Reduction Working Group for her work to protect the health of tribal people who eat fish from Oregon rivers. We look forward to her wisdom at future summits. I'd also like to take a moment to thank her fellow members of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, especially the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, for their support with both the Outfall, Wes's Outfall here in Oregon City, and our efforts to secure a recent Metro Nature in Neighborhoods grant for our Three Creeks Natural Area Water Quality Project. As Tony Wakeland noted in his letter of support, the Three Creeks projects aligns with our mission to protect the tribe's natural resources within our ceded homelands. The restoration actions will improve migratory rearing and spawning habitat for the coho salmon, winter steelhead, and potentially Pacific lamprey. As we are coming to understand, water quality is critical to all of us, and no one agency or group alone can solve this problem. Safeguarding water quality takes partnerships and collaboration. Today, we honor the many indigenous communities that have historical, cultural, and spiritual connection to what is now Clackamas County. We thank those who have connection to this land and serve as stewards, working to ensure our ecosystem stays balanced and healthy. Acknowledging the original people of the land is a simple, powerful practice that demonstrates respect by making indigenous people's history and culture visible. It is also a small step along the path towards reconciliation and repair. Please join us in taking this opportunity to thank and honor the original caretakers of this land as we enter today's conversation. Now it's my honor to welcome Oregon State Representative Anessa Hartman to the Oregon City Business Alliance. Representative Hartman serves House District 40, including Oregon City, Gladstone, and unincorporated Clackamas County. She is the third Indigenous person elected to the Oregon House of Representatives. Representative Hartman's legislative focus includes supporting working families, human services, and infrastructure. We are very fortunate to have her serving on the Ag, Land, Natural Resource, and Water Committee in her role as Vice Chair. Please join me in welcoming Representative Hartman to the podium.
Thank you for that introduction. That took away like a whole minute of my intro. So, good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to be here with you all. As you heard, I am the state representative for this district, filling some wonderful shoes by our Senator Mark Meek. And I do have the honor of being vice chair of the Water and Everything Else Committee. In the building, we say ag and everything else, and I'm the one who says water and everything else. But I also, as mentioned, I belong to the Haudenosaunee people. It's commonly known the Six Nations of Iroquois, specifically Cayuga Nation, Snipe Clan. And we are the people of the Great Swamp. So we have, from birth, we have a very deep and personal connection with water. My ancestral water homelands are the Grand River and Niagara Falls. And so it's fitting that in this district we have its cousin, Willamette Falls. And so it's an honor to be here. I know William doesn't like it when I say I'm new, but I am new to water planning, this water planning world. And for me, my role as a legislator is twofold. One is to really be in spaces like this with experts who have been doing this work and are committed to moving forward together. And really, the second part is advocating for water policy in the building. We have a lot of our colleagues who are apathetic. I heard a little bit today, like we just turn our water on and it appears and it's clean. And we're really trying to make sure we have a strong hold, and we'll talk a little bit more about today about our efforts, but making sure that we are elevating the work of water, because we can build all the housing we want, we can create all the jobs that we want, we can create more childcare opportunities. None of that matters if we don't have clean drinking water and safe water. So I am so appreciative and honored to be here in this space with you all, and I look forward to continuing to learn. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Ron Wieringa, the Deputy Director for Clackamas Water Environment Services. Ron brings 25 years of professional public works and environmental services experience to our team when he's not overseeing our administrative services group, working on regulatory affairs and other operational items. Ron can most likely be found standing in a river, fly rod in hand, fishing for steelhead, and thinking of the many ways to make our rivers healthier. Ron?
Well, thank you, Shelly. Again, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ron Wieringa. I am the Deputy Director of Water Environment Services. I've been with the district for about 8 years now. And it's certainly my privilege to serve this community and to be here with you today. I do a fair amount of public speaking, but I'm actually nervous today because of a couple of things. One, the people in the room are very important to me. I have a ton of respect for them. And two, water is very important to me. So, when Shelly raised this topic and asked if I would participate, I was more than happy to do so. I kind of tried to find a way to tell my One Water story without saying when I was a small kid, but I can't find another way to tell that story, so I'm going to start with that. My One Water story really begins in eastern Washington, where I grew up at the confluence of 3 great rivers, the Columbia, the Snake, and the Yakima rivers. I spent my youth in water, literally in water, fishing and boating and hunting and floating in rivers and creeks and irrigation canals. They're a lot of fun. Looking back now, I think I understand more that the water that we enjoyed really had many uses by the time it got to us, for forest life, for hydropower, water for agriculture, drinking water and wastewater from cities, habitat for imperiled Columbia River salmon and steelhead. And I was fascinated by the constant flow of water from an expanse that was beyond my imagination, the greater Columbia Basin. So my career choice was easy. It was going to be water. And while early on I worked on protecting and restoring our watersheds and our natural systems, I realized our biggest challenge in keeping our watersheds healthy is managing our built systems. In my career, I've worked for the Corps of Engineers on the hydropower system for farmers in the Columbia Basin project on irrigation systems, and for counties and cities running our urban water systems. I really know how vital these systems are to our community's health and prosperity, and I'm fascinated by the challenge of providing water services to people and maintaining healthy watersheds. That's why I'm here. Our built water environment is vast and complex. It's everywhere. It's often unseen, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. I still trace irrigation systems in the arid landscapes that we drive through, the canals, control structures, pumps, wasteways. And in our cities, I see drainage systems and I see wastewater pump stations. When I travel to other cities, I actually research where their water comes from, and I look up where their wastewater treatment plants are. I don't know why. In fact, just the other day, I was walking through a parking lot and I took a detour to take a look in a stormwater catch basin, and my wife said, "Did you just inspect that catch basin?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And I want other people to see it and understand it too. Not the way I do, that's somewhat twisted, I think, but understanding how our water systems are connected to each other and how and connected to the health of our watersheds is necessary for our community prosperity. So be curious about where your water comes from when you turn on the tap. That's been said today, and where your water goes when you run your dishwasher. Make that connection between you and your family and your home and your business with these things. My hope is that today we at least pique your curiosity about water. Thank you.
And last but not least, it's my pleasure to introduce one of my Pacific Northwest Water Reuse colleagues and my mentor, Jared Kinnear, Clackamas Water Services Reuse Program Manager. One of his many duties, in addition to managing his agency's reuse and biosolids program, is overseeing the Fern Hill Wetlands Natural Treatment System. Situated across more than 750 acres in Forest Grove, this natural treatment system also provides a beautiful, peaceful place to enjoy nature in a rapidly urbanizing setting. Jared always says he has the best job at clean water services, and after touring Fern Hill, I agree with him. Jared?
Thank you, Shelly. I think one thing that you'll see today, that those of us that work in this field are extremely passionate about what we do. Shelly is a prime example of the fun group of folks that I get to work with in this field. I think Ron and I are going to touch on a lot of similar points. I'm originally from Georgia, and I'm going to talk about that later, but we were in a very drought-stricken time when I was growing up, and I want to talk a lot today about the value of water from a community's perspective. And I'm going to talk about my childhood. I'm going to talk about some times in the middle of my life when water was of extreme value of what I was doing. And I'm going to talk about my experience here since I've been in Oregon. Clean Water Services, we are your sister agency right next door, as close as Tualatin and Tigard. We do stormwater, wastewater for 12 cities, all within Washington County. We have a watershed-based approach when it comes to meeting our permit requirements for our discharges from our treatment plants. We have 4 wastewater treatment plants, but we were the first ones in the nation to have a watershed-based permit that allowed us to work within the watershed to offset those impacts. 2004, that was issued to us from the EPA and DEQ. And that was the first step towards really looking holistically at a watershed approach, from impacts from human-caused inputs to treatment plant. So we've expanded on that. We've done a lot of good work, but we're collaborating with our partners. Everything that we do successful is based on partnerships. And I think communicating effectively what we can do together when we start to look at opportunities to partner. So I appreciate being here. This is going to be fantastic. I wear many hats, as Shelly said. I'm originally kind of a wetland biologist by school and by my early career. I did 10 years of consulting, mostly focused on stream restoration projects for salmon habitat in the Clackamas Basin, Sandy Basin in the metro area here. I've been with Clean Water Services about 12 and a half years. I've been managing the recycled water program and the biosolids program for the last 8 years. And it's a real honor to be here. I'm looking forward to having a conversation. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to get into sort of a learning question to help us understand more about sort of the future of One Water in our region, in our state. And we invite you to be thinking about what questions would you like to ask this amazing panel who's so passionate about the world of water. On your table, there are some blue cards. So as they go through the first sort of scripted questions, be thinking about maybe you want to deepen what they just shared or you would like to ask something else. And then Sherry and others will be walking around gathering these. So my gratitude to each of you for those wonderful introductions. So this is the first question, and it's an issues-based question. From your perspective, what are the current and perceived issues impacting the health of our shared water future? And Representative Hartman, let's start with you.
However, okay. So I have to look at this from a state perspective, and what the role of the state legislators is in this process. I feel like I've gone back to college learning about water rights in this state. Every day I learn something new, and it is complicated. It is very complicated. But what my goal is for the state to create guardrails while also being flexible for each of our basin to figure out what is best for them. Where most of my interest lies is in groundwater quality issues, reports of groundwater over allocation, as well as our aging and failure in our infrastructure. And that's, for our district specific, is making sure that the voice of smaller cities with failing infrastructure, rural cities, is being elevated, that we do not want to pass it along to our ratepayers to increase our infrastructure for our waters. And in reality, in Oregon at the state level, we have 14 natural resource agencies. And so each one of those is very siloed in the way of water work. And so how can we create a package where each of those is being honored? And that is what our focus is in the legislature, is really how do we get all of these agencies to work together while also maintaining some flexibility for our local jurisdictions, because you are all the ones that know what your water basin needs, but creating guardrails so that we can be a partner in this process rather than creating barriers. We've been doing tours across the state of different basins, hopefully Clackamas's will be soon, about what barriers the state has. And so that's where our focus will be, is looking at those, how can we be flexible with that while also maintaining like our one shared future. So that is where our focus is at the legislature.
Thank you. Ron.
Yeah, hopefully Jared and I won't overlap too much. Probably should have checked our notes together. But so my three issues are, one, infrastructure, which we'll expand on, and then the other two things are really related to infrastructure and our ability to manage it, and that's emerging contaminants and a changing climate. For infrastructure, as I said, our systems are complex and vast in this community. There's a lot of stuff to take care of. As we learned in the quiz, in Shelly's great quiz, that it was early 1970s, 1972 that marked the passing of the Clean Water Act, and 1974 marked the passing of the Safe Drinking Water Act, which also guides a lot of our work for folks in the room in this community. That really sparked a boom in infrastructure construction at the time. Much of it was funded by federal grants. Also at the time. In fact, our wastewater facility in Milwaukee, our Kellogg Creek facility, is turning 50 next year. So with age comes the need to rehabilitate and replace things like pumps and pipes, equipment, mechanical systems. And this is a cost that now will be borne locally, not by grants. And there are some grants available, but for the most part, it'll be rates, utility rates. And it's going to be our community's job to fund this infrastructure. There's expansion too. Most of all cities are growing, some faster than others. New housing is a top priority for the state of Oregon, so growth is certainly on everyone's radar. And again, this capacity needs to be funded locally. Building a strong infrastructure is a top priority, and without it, our public and watershed health, as well as our community prosperity, will suffer. So infrastructure is certainly a focus. What are we going to do there over the next 10 years or so? The other two issues touching on briefly are emerging contaminants. These are really a class of pollutants that are often unregulated and poorly understood. We don't know what their impact might be on our systems, but we're certainly keeping an eye on them. Once they're in our systems, they're certainly very difficult and costly to get out. So focusing on controlling these contaminants is key. The most visible issue right now is probably with fluorinated compounds known as PFAS or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. That's the last time I'll say that. I'll just say fluorinated compounds. They are ubiquitous in our environment because they're used in so many products that are out there in the market today. They make amazingly strong bonds. That's what this chemical does. And so they have a lot of use for anything that needs some sort of resistance or suppressant. Think things like, resistance or suppressant to water, air, fire, stain resistant. Think things like Teflon. And the things you don't think about are films and food packaging. They're paper, but they miraculously don't spill your pizza. So the fluorinated compounds are at risk in several ways in our drinking water systems. They have to be, if we find those chemicals in our drinking water systems, they need to essentially be removed to a zero level. And if they're in our wastewater systems, we're going to need to remove them as well. And the regulations are currently undeveloped for this, so they can certainly render our water supplies and the water we discharge less useful than it is today. The last challenge on climate change, the data tells us that our future will likely see a higher frequency of more intense rain events and storms. That's what we're anticipating. That could not only affect the amount of water that we have to use, but also the timing. Our infrastructure was built with the past in mind, using historic rainfall, as well as sorry, I lost my place. With the past in mind, using historic rainfall in the future might be different. And so we certainly have to keep an eye on how that might impact our systems, our capacity, and other things as well. We need to be mindful of how to take our infrastructure into the future that may be different than it was in the past. So that's another issue we need to keep an eye on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Jared, would you like to build on that?
If my talking points were going to be a lot different than Ron's, we would have a problem. Ron's spot on. Population growth, climate dynamics, I'll use that term. Washington County, fastest growing county the last decade, I would imagine Clackamas is a close second there. We're operating on an aging infrastructure. The best thing that ever happened to water was the Clean Water Act, but that was 51 years ago. We're operating underneath a construct of a very, great document that's 51 years old. A lot of things have changed. We need to be creative and innovative on how we do water treatment and everything that comes with water. But we're operating under these old constructs, and I think it's an interesting discussion to have. the regulation piece, that we could have more flexibility within our existing regulations, and we're working towards that. But between population growth and climate dynamics and aging infrastructure, those are the challenges that we have. We are trying to do a lot with the same amount that we've always had. Again, we're challenged as a public agency to keep rates down and still provide a high level of service. I would say the direct relationship of the water that you have in your community is directly related to the health of your community. Drinking water, wastewater. We are trying to get away from using the term wastewater, clean water services. Now we call them water resource recovery facilities. I think there is a paradigm shift that we need to do in our communities, and it starts with the role of the government and how we talk about water. That's something that I think is obviously going to take decades. But here we have the opportunity to look at the rest of the country. What's going on in California, Arizona, Texas, that's a peek behind the curtain for us. We have an opportunity to take advantage of that and see what's going on in the rest of the country when it comes to supply and demand issues, and realize that that's our fate and that's our future. So we can learn from folks that are feeling the fire right now and understand how they're going to get there, their mistakes they're going to make along the way, and the opportunities to be successful. And we just have to start paying attention because we can see our future at many other parts of the country and across the world. So PFAS, these other things, it's pretty scary out there when you think about some of these chemicals that we've been making since the 1940s that we're just now having the instrumentation to be able to detect them. The challenges are there. I would say we have a lot of challenges that we haven't even discovered yet. But again, we've got an incredible group of folks working in this field, and we all have a collective desire to protect our water resources. So we will be successful, but it's going to take a lot of collective understanding of what that's going to take from a community value perspective. Thanks.
Thank you, Jared. So as you can hear, one of the things that the Oregon City Business Alliance we like to do with these educational forums is really make sure that our community is up to date on the issues that are impacting water quality, impacting the state of our safeguarding our future. So I'm sure we could spend probably days on each one of the subjects each of you brought up from an issues perspective, but we all also like to bring a little bit of hope and sunshine into the group. So what are we doing currently to address some of these issues? And let's start at the state level.
Well, hopefully I can start it off well. This past long session, we passed a bipartisan drought resilience and water security package. There's an acronym in there somewhere. And the package invested over $170 million in water. We asked for $250 million. I'll just put that out there. But we were able to secure $170 million with the hopes that there will be some pickup in the short session. And I have a beautiful summary of this water package that I'm happy to share out. It's about 15 pages. It was produced by our Chair Helm of our Water and Everything Else Committee. It sort of goes into the details of it. But a couple of areas that I really wanted to highlight. We focused on three buckets, and that was water for fish, families, and farms. And within that, we had 4 other sort of categories, which were planning, coordination capacity, outreach and engagement, data and analysis, and actual water projects, which included infrastructure. The areas that I am very, very proud of, and I'm proud of them all, really have to do with water for families. One of our big chief, one of my main priority bills was really funding the Oregon Association of Water Utilities. And that was to conduct an assessment of small and rural and small community water systems, and really with the hopes of building a dedicated training center and provide technical assistance to those cities and areas and unincorporated areas that don't necessarily have the financial capacity. We will be getting a report back in January at our legislative days on their findings. It was a really quick turnaround of the research that they were to do, and they're almost done. Some of the findings will help shape some policy in the long session. Another one was for water for farms. As we move forward in our climate goals, we also need to financially be helping some of our farms. And so this created an ag water management technical assistance program at OSU. And really it helped develop region-specific knowledge and expertise to help our farms of all size and with their on-farm water management. The goal is to build a network of demonstration farms to conduct research and speed up that innovation. And also included in that bill an annual report to the legislature on climate-related impacts for our Oregon agriculture sector. The other one I wanted to touch on was in regards to infrastructure. Let me just scroll down here. This was a huge one for us. It created the Irrigation Modernization Statewide Grant Program, which $50 million in proceeds, plus the amount to pay bond-related costs from a pending March 2025 sale of our lottery bonds. Why can't things just be easy? Just give us the money. It's really for projects that conserve surface water, and those projects, priority will be given to projects that legally protect a portion of conserved water in stream, commensurate with the amount required under one of our Oregon statutes. So we're really trying to invest in those that are doing this work, and with this bill, we hopefully will be able to see some improvements on that. But again, if anyone, it's a 15-page document that has all the detail of the investments that we made this year, and then during the next couple of legislative days, we'll be talking about what investments were missed in the long session with the hopes that we'll take care of it in the short session.
That's fantastic. And for those who are watching from Zoom in the audience, we do record this program, and so we will make sure that we will share this video is available for free to share with anyone. We'll add that document to that, anything else you would like us to. So thank you for your great work. Ron.
If we could, Shelly, do you have the clicker?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. There it is. It's up there. I wanted to give you something to look at while I talk this time, so enjoy. This graphic, I need to give credit to the Clackamas River water providers. I wish we had done this graphic, but they did, and it's fantastic. We got posters of it in our office, and I like it because it's place-based. It shows Mount Hood and the source of the Clackamas River. If you look across the top, it shows the withdrawal of water from the Clackamas River and how it's treated by our amazing water providers, stored and then distributed to the community. And at the bottom of the graphic, you see the three major water systems in our community, and that's drinking water, stormwater, and wastewater. So keep that in mind. Given the daunting issues that we flagged a minute ago, I think the good news is there's a lot of great work going on right now to be prepared, and we should acknowledge that. For one, there is a true community focus on water here. Our Clean Water Exchange, the work Shelly has done out in the community talking to people about water, has really shown that people do, when it comes to water, understand and appreciate and are concerned about infrastructure and water quality. It is top of mind. So it's much needed to support infrastructure and water quality initiatives that we have. Also in this community, there's a bunch of smart, creative, dedicated professionals working on our clean water future. Raise your hand in the room if you work on water issues. If you're part of our community working on water infrastructure, any of our water systems, there's quite a few people of you here today, and our elected officials should raise their hands as well, because we constantly put challenging policy issues and things in front of them to approve to help us work towards a secure water future. So how are we getting ready? Again, aging infrastructure is something that is really on everyone's minds, especially those tasked to provide reliable service to our community and in a cost-effective way, and be mindful of our ratepayers' dollars. This is work that we've done recently. We've gone through most of our community cities and districts' financial plans and capital plans to come up with a number that I haven't seen before, which is a planned investment in water infrastructure just in this community over the next 10 years. And our estimate is it's over $2 billion. So that's over $2 billion of water infrastructure work that people have identified that needs to be done. That's $1.3 billion for wastewater, $632 million for drinking water, and $194 million for stormwater. This is a planned investment. It's not necessarily funded. This comes from people's plans about what they are saying they need to do, and all of our providers have their own financial stories to tell. But there's still clearly a lot of infrastructure works that needs to be done, and there's a plan to do it. So that is certainly good news. The other initiatives to get ahead of the curve on the other issues of climate and contaminants, we have some examples of those because they are part of these broader plans. There are certainly resiliency projects going on throughout your water providers' systems. There's work around energy, that's backup supplies in energy as we start to see how interruptions in electricity can impact our ability to provide these services. There's alternative sources of energy. You might have heard about the work that we do at our wastewater treatment plant, water resource recovery facility, sorry Jared, to use the gas that we produce in wastewater treatment to produce electricity. There's also work on flooding to get ready for more intense storms that might create more flooding, to make sure our infrastructure is safe, and capacity projects as well if we feel like we need more capacity. We have a program that we started a few years ago on working on infiltration and inflow, which is water that gets into our wastewater system that shouldn't be in our wastewater system, like rainwater and groundwater, that we then have to treat during these wet weather events. And rather than trying to make all of our systems bigger and working with the cities to make their pipes bigger, we started a program to work with our partner cities to repair pipes and make them more resilient to these really intense rain events that we might see in the future. So we're certainly building for the future. And the last piece too, when it comes to climate and contaminants, is our watershed protection work. Each of these cities and districts and county that we all live in work to prevent pollution in stormwater, pollution that might come in wastewater that we can't take out at our treatment plants. They're not designed to do it. So we have our watershed protection programs. We have some examples are like stormwater treatment wetlands that we built. We built one in the Clackamas industrial area in 2018 to help protect the Clackamas River as a source of drinking water for people. And so that important work goes on along with the important pollution prevention work. So although the work is hard, the good news is that we're well on our way. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared.
I am going to stay in the recycle water lane for this one. Shout out to the senator in the purple shirt. Thank you. Purple is the color of recycled water. That's all the pipelines. So I don't know if you knew that, but thank you. Yes. So yeah, I'm going to stay in that lane. I think it's an important resource that we are just now kind of identifying the need to take advantage of, I think, in our communities. And like I said, I think it's a paradigm shift. We have to have a driver. The community needs a driver. I mean, when I grew up in Georgia, it was drought. It was very clear that we needed to be smarter with our water use. Here, I think if you asked just anyone on the street what recycled water is, they likely, I would guess, not know what I was referring to. So it's been a long uphill battle for me, I think. And to my earlier point, the way that we're successful is partnerships. We have 12 member cities, and they all have drinking water providers that are faced with the same challenges that we are. They have huge projects that they're building, and they're not looking to lose any customers. So, when I walk in the room, I could be looked at as competition. I could be looked at as someone that's trying to convince someone to not use potable water for irrigating their lawn in lieu to use recycled water, because in the one water sort of mantra, it's fit for purpose. We have to use the quality of water for its intended use. For example, irrigating your lawn, recycled water is probably the most appropriate level of treated water you should be using for that, not necessarily taking it to the level of drinking water. But in our community, we value green lawns, we value green spaces, and historically we've just used the supply of potable water. So, when I come to the table, I'd like to talk about conserving potable supplies, keeping water in the river, using recycled water and replacement of water withdrawals, water rights, potable water. And we've been trying to come up with creative ways to look as not being a competitor to our partners in the drinking water world. We've looked at, like I said, a lot of the other parts of the country that have struggled with these same challenges. And there are opportunities out there to partner. And there's a wholesale retail partnership that you can do with the drinking water providers. So a lot of what I talk about is diversifying our water portfolios. We're kind of a one-trick pony out where I live. There's the drinking water people here, and then we're the wastewater, stormwater people here, and there's just not a lot of collaboration. But when I think about the future, I think it's a needed collaboration, and there's other parts of the country that have come up with really creative ways to make the partnership work for both entities. I get to work with Susan and Scott here at WSC, which is a fantastic firm that helps us look at other parts of the country and come up with creative solutions. And I think we have the time to start to have a meaningful conversation without being what I like to refer to as backed into a corner, which is fantastic. One of the creative ways that me, being a wetland scientist, is looking to sort of paradigm shift the communities on the benefits of recycled water is doing something that's really unique to recycled water programs across the country, and that's use it as a tool for wetland restoration. These urban wetlands have been severed from their natural hydraulic inputs through impervious surfaces, paving, streets, buildings. They don't have a chance to really restore themselves because one of their lifelines is water. And recognizing, as I like to refer to as wetlands, as the kidneys of the earth, and what they do is slow down water and filter pollutants and sediments, that the urban ones are very important. And we can use recycled water as a tool to restore their function and provide the water supply that the native plants need in order to be resilient. Where these sit in the landscape or in the riparian areas and adjacent to our surface waters, and their health is critical, I think, to the future of these urban environments. So looking at recycled water as a water source for irrigating wetlands is a unique approach. We've been partnering with DEQ on developing what that would look like within the existing regulations. They're very supportive of this. We have a pilot project in Tualatin that we're working on right now. And we've taken it broader to a state level and supported the Oregon Clean Water Agency Association to support DEQ with House Bill 3231, where we were able to get some funding specifically to provide to DEQ to rewrite the recycled water rules to allow more flexible. If you read those rules right now, which they were last written in the early 90s, they kind of talk about recycled water as a waste allocation approach. We need to talk about recycled water as a water resource. And that's what we're working with, both Clean Water Services, ACWA, other utilities, and then Susan and I are on the Pacific Northwest WaterReuse Board, which is a member of the National WaterReuse Board. And the national perspective on what we're doing up here is very unique and very creative, and that's, to my point earlier, that's what it's going to take to sort of do this paradigm shift. We have to speak to the values of our community, which are green spaces, wildlife habitat improvements, wetland restoration, clean rivers. Recycled water is a tool that we can get there to use all those. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. So as you can see, there are a lot of efforts currently underway, but now I'd like to close this formal part of the summit and ask our panelists to look to the future. And Representative Hartman, I know when I heard you like, let's get going, why can't this move faster? So I'm going to let you move it really quickly into the future with your state legislature hat on. What would that look like to you? What would a secure One Water future look like, and what could or should we be doing? And then feel free to toss it back to the audience. What should or could they be doing to support you?
Fair enough. although I feel like I have to have a very PC answer when it comes to government. So I think, for me, my role is to continue to support you all and provide you a seat at the table, because it often, in my experience over the past 10 months, that we support the idea of place-based planning. But when place-based solutions are presented to us, we seem to fight those. And so for me, that is where I want to step in and make sure that piece, like that we're honoring those place-based solutions. And that's going to take a lot of work with some of my colleagues. It is really trusting, I think is the good word, trusting that you all know what you're doing. And so that is really where my heart leans. In terms of being very creative, because we do have to educate the other 89 people within the building, is we have created the first ever joint bipartisan bicameral water caucus. And we've got quite a large membership throughout the building. And what our main mission is to secure water future for all Oregonians and really uplift place-based planning and solutions. And so we have, over the past couple of months, we just went to the Deschutes Basin, water basin, and learned all about their efforts and their place-based solutions. We'll be heading to the mid-coast basins next month, as well as the lower Umatilla water basin. I'm sure everyone in this room knows what's going on out there in the Umatilla and their groundwater issues. And so we're really trying to bring in all folks, all perspectives into this and going to the communities. And Clackamas is on the list to coordinate that, and hopefully we'll have everyone who raised their hands in here on that tour, and really continue to get my colleagues to understand that we need to be listening to you all about what the solutions are, and then funding those place-based solutions and being a partner in that while also leveraging our federal funding. So that is my role and the goal that I want to see. So.
Wonderful. You paint a positive future, and one of the things to keep in mind as we're moving forward, the Oregon City Business Alliance, think about how we can support you moving forward. Okay, Ron, what does the future look like from your perspective? And if you could add sort of that Clackamas County, our district view.
Sure, absolutely. So our roadmap to a clean water future really, and it really ties to our vision at West, which is to be a collaborative partner in a clean water future for all, working together as a community, not with a jurisdictional focus, and to share as many resources as possible. There's a tremendous amount of work that we need to do, and we're not really going to get there with using our same old traditional methods. It's not just government, it's going to certainly take all of us, and because really individually we're not as strong as we are working together. And so the focus of that partnership, as I've mentioned, the issues with infrastructure, which are going to kind of have to play themselves out because we're already on that path of having this infrastructure that we need to maintain and expand, is really focusing those partnerships on healthy, resilient watersheds. We have iconic rivers in this county. We have the Sandy River, the Clackamas River, the Molalla River, all of which are used as, that's not all of them, it's just 3 of them, all of which are used for drinking water sources. That's really important to make sure those watersheds stay healthy. And then, as well as our other valuable water resources in this community that aren't part of those watersheds, like the Kellogg Mount Scott Creek watershed and Abernathy Creek watershed, which is right over here. Focusing on that watershed health means things like continuing to build more green infrastructure and do more restoration work in the watersheds, especially from a drinking water perspective. We have to keep that water clean. Again, because once it's not clean, it is very, very expensive to make clean again. Examples of green infrastructure projects, we mentioned earlier, West's Three Creeks project, which really is a broad partnership of North Clackamas Parks and Rec, Clackamas Community College, the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, Metro, watershed councils, and business and neighborhood groups, all behind and supporting the work that we're trying to do there is very important if we try and get those projects done. And again, making those investments and doing our part in the pollution prevention programs. Whether we're talking about our stormwater systems or our wastewater systems, we have to be mindful about what we put down the drain and what comes off of our yards. And that's something we can all work on together, particularly for our business partners in the room who manage their own private stormwater systems. You know, work with us if you're in our jurisdiction, or others if you're in their jurisdiction, on keeping your stormwater system working. It's good for you, it's good for your property, and it's good for watershed health as well. So that's something that folks can certainly do. And we really need to continue to invest and expand on our work with watershed health education and stewardship. Wes is a partner with Solve, and we sponsor the Summer Waterway Cleanup Series, where we do trash cleanups throughout really the county and beyond through the summer, but that really gets people involved and out there and understanding how they might impact our watersheds and what they can do to help keep things clean, as we remove thousands of pounds of trash every year when we do that. We also, another example of an education partnership is with Clackamas Community College. We support educational programming at the Environmental Learning Center at CCC to provide educational programs to schools, and there are other partners in the room that do that as well. We need to make sure we're constantly talking about healthy watersheds and what that means for our clean water future. Most importantly, and I think I said this in the beginning, just be curious, get involved. I'm here to tell you that it does matter, it does make a difference at the individual level, and we certainly need your help. So thank you.
Jared, let me know when I know you have a few slides, let me know when you want me to forward them.
I will,
Okay.
thank you. Well, you don't know your future unless you know your past, so I'm gonna take a little dip in some personal experiences that I've had in different communities I've lived in, and the perceived value of water. And I'm going to start a little out of order, but this is what I think about Oregon. Just turn on that faucet and let it fly, baby. You got a snowy mountain all summer. We don't have a perceived water crisis here. It's just everywhere, right? I mean, I haven't heard once on the news about conserve water, turn the water off when you brush your teeth. It's just, we have plenty of water, right? Right? Which was interesting from where I sort of had come from. It was when I first moved to Oregon, I was like, wow, this really doesn't seem to be any water issues around here. But clearly there are. But this is sort of just how the community kind of perceives the value of water. You can go to the next slide. I grew up in Georgia, like I said, and it was a very drought-stricken couple decades. It was on the news. Our reservoirs were extremely low. It was on the news nightly. The messaging was clear that we were in a bit of a water crisis. I remember my mom and dad clearly yelling at me if I let the water run while I was brushing my teeth. It was just part of the value of our community that we needed to be very smart about our water use. If you wanted to irrigate your lawn, which you were not encouraged to, you can only do it every third day. There was rewards for turning in your neighbors that were irrigating outside of the windows in which they should, so there was incentive programs to conserve water. It was just part of the fabric of which we grew up in, which I thought was interesting. So it kind of the messaging sort of came from the government, the utilities down, and the community got in line, and we all behaved because we understood that the issues were real and that the crisis was upon us. So, and then I got another opportunity, so the analogies are sort of like I was trying to when you see with Oregon, it's like just the water's in your house, you can go. But in Oregon, you can go this previous slide. Yeah, this is more like when I grew up in Georgia, it's more like car camping. It's like you bring your jugs of water. You're conscious about your water use. You know if you run out, you can probably drive and get some more, but you're pretty conscious of it. So my comparison is sort of like car camping. And then I had an experience, if you go to the next slide, Shelly. When I got done with college, my twin brother and I hiked the Appalachian Trail, 2,000-mile footpath, 6 months, food, water, shelter. And that was it. And we had one governing voice, and that was the green book there, the handbook. This was 2001. We didn't have smartphones. So we had this guidance that was, there being 8 miles, there's water. And sometimes the water was there, sometimes it wasn't there. We had to be pretty smart about conserving our water, having backup supplies, recognizing that even though this book told us water could be there, it could not be there. And it gave me a completely different perspective of the value of water. And so preparing for talks like this, I think about those 3 points in my life where my perception of the value of water and the community's perception of the value of water were in alignment of kind of the water situation in that area. I would challenge us that we need to start thinking about doing more car camping. We need to start thinking about knowing our supplies, our demands, in the light of population growth, climate change. I would say that Texas, California, they're on the Appalachian Trail right now. They are very, very concerned about where their next water supply is coming from and their sources of water. We're kind of sitting in our home still with faucets running on, but we're listing towards going to the car camping analogy, and I just think we need to be aware of the value. And I would say that the leaders in this room are the ones that can start to have the conversation with our communities to start get the paradigm shifting going of just understanding the value of water, the fit for purpose conversation, and just sort of the overall one water discussion, I think is a healthy conversation to have at your next cocktail party. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. And Jared, I just want to say thank you because I know you came all the way from the west side today to be a mentor in this conversation for us, so we really absolutely appreciate that. So let's give our panelists a big round of applause for all their wisdom and hard work. Thank you. Okay, so now audience questions. I couldn't prepare you guys for this one. Here we go. Let's see what happens. I'll just take a few that just kind of bubble up to the top. What role can watershed councils and land trusts play as a priority, protect and restore clean water? Who would like to take that one? Ron's leaning in.
Yeah, I'll start. What I kind of said before about all working together collaboratively, sort of seeing beyond our jurisdictions and starting to work more on our watersheds is really something the watershed councils can help us do. They're the ones that sort of have their watershed in mind and are kind of the glue that brings us all together. They certainly have resources available and have access to some funding that some of our cities don't, and we can bring funding to the table as well to work in restoring and protecting our healthy watersheds. So, they're a key partner if we're going to start that paradigm shift and start to think about water a little differently. They're the ones that we need to start with, I would say.
Yeah, I think Ron's right on. I think it's a grassroots approach. Watershed councils are fundamental for that grassroots approach. I think a member of the community to get into the game, volunteer. That's the small thing you can do. Volunteer, go to a planting event, be interested in what your watershed council's doing. And at that level, to Ron's point, individuals matter, and I think the watershed councils facilitate the opportunities to get the grassroots and just a single community member interested in at least knowing more about the watershed, which is going to get them more invested into being protective of the watershed.
And fix your leaks. Be smart with pesticides. Don't flush wipes.
Okay. All right. We got a lot of questions here. All right, Ron. So, first of all, Representative Hartman, you have done an amazing job bringing yourself up to speed on all these complex issues that we're facing. But this question is a biggie. So, what is the state doing to avoid a Flint situation in our rural, non-metro areas? And you kind of touched, in a way, upon this.
I said no hard questions. They all go there. I definitely, whoever asked this question can get back to you on more like metrics and numbers in this regard. But we really focus on the phrase balance of state right now, and that goes into all sectors that we've been working on. But for the Water Committee, it is an overall consensus that rural Oregon has been left out of the conversation when it comes to water, to infrastructure, to housing, to a lot of things. And so for us, with that balance of state mission, that has as much seat at the table as, let's say, the Tri-County area or the Portland metro region, really focusing in a lot on ag and education and modernization, and making sure that we are providing them the tools that will help them move forward into our, whether it's climate goals or other goals that we might have in sort of water conservation. But there are bills that I cannot share with right now that will focus on the rural Oregonians and making sure that they have safe, clean drinking water. We were able to invest in the Tribal Work Study Group, the Tribal Water Task Force Group, another $2 million, which also helps our 9 federally recognized tribes increase their water infrastructure. So there's a lot of resilience packages that we're working on that focus on that balance of state when it comes to water infrastructure and clean drinking water. But I can get back to you with more information.
More information. We'll just keep inviting you back. So I think this might be for Jared or Ron. How are microplastics affecting the treatment systems?
Well, boy, microplastics, PFAS, dioxins, as a wastewater utility, we have to deal with all these things. We're not the generators of these things. We get gifted these opportunities. I think, the regulations are slow to develop. I would say that I'm proud to work at Clean Water Services because we are very proactive. We do not sit back and sort of wait for the regulations and then we'll figure it out. We do a lot of due diligence. Microplastics are certainly an issue that we're concerned about. So we're measuring them and we're trying to understand what level of concern we have. It's one of many issues that we deal with. The way that we're going to deal with it is through source control. We have to go to the source of where these things are being generated before they come to us. Same with PFAS. Same with a lot of the things of concern in our world. It's not going to be through necessarily a treatment step, and we will probably have to get to a treatment step, membranes, reverse osmosis, high energy, very intensive treatment. We are on a slow march to membranes at Clean Water Services. We're doing everything we can to do these environmental, holistic, watershed-based approaches. But we're on a slow march to intense treatment based on regulations and pollutants. But the other way we're going to slow that train down is through the source control work. We have to partner with our industrial users. We have to partner with the folks that are discharging to us so they understand that what they're sending us is harmful to the environment, harmful to our ratepayers, harmful to them, quite frankly. So it's a multifaceted approach, but it's through education, partnerships, and trying to work above the industries on who's producing these chemicals, who's producing the microplastics, and start to work with them as well to find alternatives. A lot of these things are lobbied hard, and we have to try to find alternatives, and we have to try and find the sweet spot. But it's going to be an educational campaign and partnering campaign. So.
I just wanted to add, I know nothing about PFAS other than it's bad, and it's a forever chemical. But I did want to just touch on that this past legislative session, we joined 8 other states that bans PFAS in takeout containers, and so our food vendors no longer are allowed to use food containers with that. And I know that's just one piece of the puzzle, but that was enacted this year. One of the bills that would study PFAS in the ag industry that's put onto our crops that died in Ways and Means, which is one that we might bring back during the short session, but just another segment that we are tackling on that. So.
Great, and I just wanted to say that there are so many good questions in here, and none of them are easy, just panel, so you know. And we're not going to have time to get to all of them today. So I think I need to my Oregon City Business Alliance, Fellow board members, we may need to have a continued conversation, and the Rotary, thank you for keeping this conversation moving forward, because there's clearly a need, and definitely we're going to have the representative back. So I'm going to try to squeeze in a few more. So this one is kind of right up your alley, Ron. How old is Wes's facility? It doesn't seem to be an aging facility, in quotes. So first of all, I want to say that Clackamas Water Environment Services has 5 wastewater treatment facilities or water resource recovery facilities. I'm going to assume that this one is referring to the one right here in Oregon City that we call the Tri-City facility. Ron? Why doesn't it look old and run down?
The question is, why doesn't Tri-City look
Yeah,
old and
it doesn't seem to be an aging
because
facility.
we take great care of it. So the I don't have the, I know when Kellogg was built in 1974. I had that date. I didn't think about the other one. The Tri-City facility replaced facilities that were in our communities in Oregon City and Westland, and was built in the 80s. We have done a significant amount of work at that facility over the past 10 or so years. We built an entire another treatment train. It's called the membrane bioreactor. It's a membrane facility like Jared had talked about that helps us treat water. We just recently did a solids handling and expansion project, and built a new digester and built solids handling facilities. So we're constantly upgrading and maintaining and expanding that facility, which really has it looking new and looking more modern. In fact, we have green roofs on many of our buildings down there as well. So we're constantly trying to build new energy saving and sort of cutting edge technology whenever we do an expansion there.
So I would like to offer, I hope this is okay, Ron, and our director, Greg Geist, anyone who joined us today on Zoom or here, if they would like a tour of the Tri-City facility here in Oregon City and you'd like to learn more, Representative Hartman, we would love to have you out. And I know we are officially at the close of time, and there are so many questions here that are related to what the state is doing or could be doing. I'm going to make sure that Representative Hartman gets all of these. Let's thank them, and sounds like we have a need to welcome them back next year. And thank you for coming, and we'll see you in November, where our president, Dr. Tim Cook, will be talking about what's happening at Clackamas Community College.